Is Found North the best whiskey out of America that's not bourbon? Let's find out. What is going on, everybody? Nathan here with the Everyday Drinker, bringing you guys a brand new video. Today on the bar top, we have a couple of sample bottles sent to us from Found North Distilling Company, and I cannot wait to get into them. But before we do, I just need to thank you guys so much for the love and support for the channel recently. You guys are killing it with the likes and the comments and smashing that subscribe button. So if you're new, make sure you do the same and hit that like button down below. Leave a comment down below on if you've had Found North products before or if you're very interested in them and you've been waiting for reviews. I know a bunch of other channels have done reviews on these products, and I'm finally able to do one myself. And if you enjoy the content, make sure you smash that subscribe button. But let's get into a couple of details about Found North themselves. So Found North sources most, if not all, of their whiskey from Canada. Now, what this allows them to do is Canada actually distills and ferments all of their whiskeys as single grain. So what this allows Found North to do is bring in those single grain whiskeys and blend them into however they want. So that is what we have here in front of us. These three right here cannot be called American bourbons because they are distilled out of Canada and then they are blended here in the States. But these three right here, from what I know, are the closest thing to a bourbon that you can get out of the country. This one right here is a rye whiskey because it is mostly rye in the mash bill. So without further ado, let's get into the batches that Found North sent my way. All of these are findable here in the States for the states that do get their hands on Found North. I'm pretty sure it's a limited amount of states, but if you are in those states, you should be able to find these. The only difficult one that is out there right now is the Second Summit Batch 006. But if you have absolutely no idea what any of these are, let's get into them and let you know what's in these bottles. So here on the left, we have Batch 007. This is at least 18 years old in this blend. It is a grain mash bill of 83% corn, 16% rye, 1% barley, matured in Hungarian oak, and it comes out to 131 proof. Now, Found North does recommend dropping a few drops of water in your glass to enjoy this one. They said that it opens it up absolutely beautifully, so we might be doing that ourselves here in the future. But bottle number 2 here, we have Found North Batch 006. This is a blend of 26 and 17-year-old whiskeys that are then matured in Hungarian oak at 128 proof. This is a mash bill of 87% corn, 12% rye, and 1% malted barley. Then what Found North did is they made a second 006, but this is the Second Summit. Now, the Second Summit is everything that the Batch 006 is, but then it is finished in a PX sherry cask. Now this one, like I said, is going to be the hardest one to find. And then the fourth sample that Found North sent my way is the Batch 003 rye. Now this is a 17-year-old rye finished in ex-bourbon, tequila, and Speyside barrels. So this one should be pretty interesting to get into our whiskey holes. The whiskey hole right here, the mouth hole, right? I'm very excited to get into that one. As you know, starting to dabble into those ryes a little bit more on this one. Being finished in all of those wacky barrels should be pretty darn good. But without further ado, I am super excited to get into this one right here, the 007, their newest batch, and see what this one is all about. So on the nose, you're going to get a bourbon-esque, right? These are bourbon mash bills that everybody knows and loves, but they're not finished in new American oak. These are all finished in ex-barrels that they were able to get their hands on. And, you know, some people might say it's a good thing, some people might say it's a bad thing, you know, but at the end of the day, it's all in your own taste preference. And this nose is absolutely beautiful at the moment. I can already tell you that right now. This is 131-ish proof, which is a very, very high proof for one of your first sips of the day. But this is a very rich cherry nose right off of the bat. I get this warm vanilla that just lingers on that tail end and that nose. That just it's almost like an apple pie. There's a little bit of just like the thin layered pastry for a tart. Absolutely wonderful on this nose. I like this nose a lot. There's a lot of fruits in here: apples, peaches. That vanilla is nice and warm. Nice buttery pastry coming out of there. But we all drink our bourbon, so cheers to you all. That is a very, very warm sip, but it does not overpower your palate like you would expect it would. Now, like I said, this is the first sip of the day for me, and that is the most bourbony non-bourbon that I have had in a very long time. And the nose is wonderful. That palate is absolutely delicious. It follows through. A lot of the times on bourbons, you'll hit that nose, you'll find that nose, you'll find those different like apples and whatnot that you can find, right? And it does not transfer into the palate, but this transfers so nicely from the nose into the palate. It really does give you that Kentucky hug going down that you would expect from that 131 proof whiskey. But this is almost like a dessert sip out of a glass. It is absolutely wonderful. And if you're looking for something that's a higher proof, that is, you know, not a bourbon, but it has those bourbon qualities, that is definitely a delicious bottle, a delicious pour that you should probably try and get your hands on, because that is absolutely wonderful. But let's get into 006 here. This is the 26 and 17-year-old matured whiskeys. And the nose here, I get a little bit more honey out of this. It's very, very nice. It's a little bit on that like darker sweet side. There's like some brown sugars coming out of this as well. Definitely a honey forward nose. I enjoy this nose. I think if I were to say my favorite out of the two right now would be the 007, but this 006 is wonderful. It's very honey forward though. That's one thing I'm finding out of this. And I don't know if that's a Hungarian oak thing, right? Being a honey like forward nose coming out of a Hungarian oak. I've had a couple of Hungarian oak finishes, but nothing that's been traditionally just straight up matured in the Hungarian oak. But this is wonderful. There's a touch of a peach coming off of that tail end too. And a touch of like a green apple. Peaches, green apple, and honey. It's like if you had like drizzled honey over those fruits, right? And they were nice and crispy. Oh man, that just sounds so good. But let's get into the palate. Now this one here is 128 proof, so it is right up there at that high proof point. But the burn and the spice hit completely different. This one is burning the sides of my tongue, and this one was burning the tips of my tongue. This one is spicier. It comes in packed full of flavor. Is this higher rye? I think this is, no, it's not higher rye, but it drinks like it's a higher rye. I get a little bit more of a cinnamon kick, a little bit more of those baking spices coming out of this. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's a little bit more of that like maturation. You're getting a little bit more of that like tannic bitterness, but it's not bitter. It comes through as a spice, and it's really, really pleasant. Absolutely wonderful. I enjoy that a lot. And you get that initial like, there's this like pine grassy kind of like earthy quality that comes through. But a lot of the times when I get like a rye that is young, I get a cedar or a birch coming through with it. But because this is so old, these are so mature and well aged, I'm not getting that like, oh, like this is like a bitter kind of a bark coming out of this. This is a very, very well balanced. And it's got a little bit of a hay belly like note coming through on there. There's a little dustiness. It's got a touch of this really strange peanut that's coming through that I wasn't expecting to come out of this. But damn, that is good. That is really good. Off of the palate, it is better than the 007. I will say that right now. 006 is better than 007. But this one right here is what I would believe would be the cream of the crop of their releases. It is the one I believe that I was sent to me by your drinking buddy. I don't know. I can't remember if this one was as well. But if it was, this is drinking a little bit different. I don't remember the complexity coming out of this as it did in that sample. But from what I remember from this 006 Second Summit, it is a beast, an absolute behemoth on the nose and on the palate. And I'm definitely getting a little bit more of like a sweetness coming through. And I'm not a big sherry PX sherry cask finish guy. I'm not a big wine finisher. I don't really enjoy the port. Not a big sherry. But this one on that nose is unbelievable. You're getting a little bit of this grape soda coming through. It's very, very rich, very dark, very cola-esque. And I enjoy it. It's coming through. It's burning my eyes a little bit more than the other two. But it rounds off, and it's got this cherryness. It's almost like if you combined a grape soda and a cherry soda and poured it into one, and it was just this beautiful marriage in one. This nose is absolutely wonderful. It's got this maple syrupiness to it as well. It's thick, it's rich, but I just want to drink it. That's all I want to do. Cheers. And it's so different from this one right here. Is it the same proof? 64.9, 64.1. This is a higher proof than this one on the left, probably because it had a little bit more evaporation when it was finished in those PX casks or whatnot. Maybe a different blend going into this one, a little bit different than that. But it is just from this, it's just a little bit more on that sweet side. It's more desserty. It's very, very like pie forward in a way. Like it has those very nice baking spices, but then it's almost like it was like a blueberry pie in a way, right? It's very dark, very rich, but very sweet. Absolutely beautiful on the nose and on the palate. I love that so much. I am going to get a little bit of water to add into that real quick though. I'll be right back. Okay, so before we get into the rye, I do just want to go back into this one, the 007, and give it what the founders of Found North recommend doing, is adding a couple of drops of water into it and seeing how much more it opens up. So I'm going to give one more sip of this. Let that peruse over my tongue a little bit. And I'm going to let you know if it does open up a little bit more and if those flavors are a little bit more pronounced and a little bit more on those, like if it just changes like astronomically, like I'm imagining this might. So take your straw. Let's add, that's enough. That was like 4 or 5 drops going in there. Swirl it around. It's crazy what water does into a glass of whiskey. And we're just going to coat this glass up. Whoa. The sweetness overload. Like, it's like if you took maple syrup and you left it out, right? Maple syrup left out. What does that do? It overwhelms the kitchen with that sweet mapley aroma. And this is what that just did to this. Those oils just risen to the top, and it just brings over this mapley sweetness that is very pleasant. Wow, I like that. That definitely changed it completely. Let's get into the palate and see what happens. That is insane what water can do. Oh my gosh. I have to start doing that more often on like higher proofed whiskeys, adding a couple of drops of water and seeing what it can do, because it does work absolute wonders. It's not that you're proofing it down and letting it sit in a bottle for God knows how long until it's opened up. What you're doing is you're separating the oils in that whiskey, and they're rising to the top because oil is less dense than water. The water drops everything else, the oils rise to the top, and that initial sip is what everything is just all about out of that bourbon or that whiskey or that rye, whatever you're having. And it's just super, super sweet. I got a lot of fruitiness out of that. There was grapes, there was apples, there was green apple, there was red delicious. There was so much coming out of there that is insane what that water just did. And it has that mapley, absolute beautifulness that comes through on there. Water definitely made that one 10 times better. But this video is getting long and I need to get into the rye, and I was really excited to get into it, and I hope you guys are still here. If you are, let me know down in the comments below by commenting rye guy. I want to see rye guy down in the comments if you're still here. Don't even know what minute mark this is, but let's get into the nose of on the rye. So the rye, a lot of times on ryes, like I'm getting off of this, I get candied orange. And it's one of those prevalent notes. I have something in my eye that has been bothering me this entire recording. And I am so sorry for that. But I get candied orange and I get pine needles out of this. Now this rye is at least 17 years old, I believe, right? Yeah, 17 years old. It's 110.2 proof. And it's matured in American oak. Now, it's ex-bourbon barrels, ex-tequila barrels, and Speyside. So it's going to have a little bit more of a complexity to it than a lot of other ryes. Now, I believe it's the barrel seagrass that is a rye that's finished with a bunch of other things that might be very similar to this in a way. It's a very, very orange sweetness coming through on that. It's almost like it's a very, very watered down orange juice in a way. Very, very nice. I also get a touch of a unripened pineapple. Very, very earthy as well. There is a little bit of cedar coming through on this, a little pine on that palate. Now, what I, as a bourbon lover and somebody who's starting to get into rye whiskeys, spend my money on this one, I personally would not. Now, that does not go to say that a rye whiskey lover should not spend their money on this, because this is a very delicious pour, but it's not my favorite out of the four. These three right here, I do know that Found North prices are a little bit higher than what we as traditional bourbon lovers like to spend. But that is solely due to the fact because of their blending expertise and the aging of the barrels that they have. They have very, very old Canadian whiskey that they are sourcing and blending and aging, and that comes at a cost. And these right here are absolutely fantastic pours in their own right. If I myself were to rank them in order, Second Summit number 1, 007, add a couple drops of water like the experts recommend, because the experts are correct that water does explode this glass. It makes it absolutely delicious. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That is my personal preference on these 4 samples that Found North sent my way. Absolutely delicious pours in their own right. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have Found North, if you have any other offerings, let me know what you do have down in the comments below. Until next time, this has been Nathan with the Everyday Drinker. Cheers.